It began like any other October morning in suburban Washington, D.C. Quiet, calm, ordinary. But by sundown, everything would change. On October 2nd, 2002, a 55-year-old man was shot and killed in the parking lot of a grocery store in Wheaton, Maryland. No witnesses saw a shooter. There was no sound other than the shot, no vehicle speeding away. Just a man lying lifeless near his car, and a community frozen in shock. No one realized it yet, but this was the start of one of the most terrifying killing sprees in American history. Over the next 3 weeks, panic began to consume the region. The killer, or killers, was striking completely at random. A landscaper mowing grass, a woman vacuuming her car at a gas station, a 13-year-old boy walking into school. None of them had any connection. There was no pattern, no motive. And that made it far more terrifying. Everyone, everywhere became a potential target. People started zigzagging in parking lots, hiding, behind vehicles to pump gas, staying indoors and glancing over their shoulders at every turn. Schools canceled outdoor activities. Sporting events were shut down. A region that prided itself on resilience had suddenly turned into a paranoid ghost town. The attacks were carried out with terrifying precision. One bullet, one victim, always fatal. Investigators quickly realized the shooter was using a high-powered rifle, most likely a .223 caliber from a long distance, possibly through a sniper scope. But that didn't narrow it down. Anyone could buy that type of rifle. The shooter had the ability to vanish, disappear into the noise of the city. There were no shell casings, no usable fingerprints, no surveillance. It was as if the bullets were coming from thin air. The media dubbed the suspect the Beltway Sniper. But no one knew who the sniper was, or even if it was just one person. The FBI, ATF, local police, and even military intelligence were pulled into the investigation. Roadblocks were set up across highways. Tips flooded hotlines. Over 70,000 of them. But none led to a break. Meanwhile, the killer kept striking, day after day, night after night. The randomness of it all created an overwhelming sense of dread. People were being shot in front of their families while walking to the bus stop, even while reading a book in a park. Then came the notes. After one of the shootings, police found a tarot card left near the scene, the death card. Written on it were chilling words, "Call me God." Later, a letter was found demanding money and threatening more deaths if the demands weren't met. The sniper was now playing with authorities, treating human life like a game, a negotiation chip. The killer had the upper hand, and he knew. What made it worse was how the media fed the frenzy. Every shooting became breaking news. Anchors speculated endlessly. The sniper was watching. In fact, in one of the letters to police, he bragged about monitoring TV coverage of his crimes. He was feeding off the chaos, using it as fuel. At one point, the killer targeted a bus driver in the early morning hours. Another day, he killed a woman as she loaded packages into her car. He shot people of all ages, all backgrounds, race, gender, occupation. None of it mattered. The killer simply wanted death. And he wanted the world to watch. Residents began changing their routines. Parents refused to send their kids to school. Gas stations erected giant tarps to shield customers. People wore disguises just to feel safe. Some even lay flat on the floor of their cars when stopped at intersections. The Beltway region had become a war zone, but the enemy was invisible. Law enforcement was working around the clock. Helicopters scanned the skies. Undercover officers patrolled neighborhoods. Forensic teams tried to extract microscopic clues from bullet fragments and shell impressions, but they were up against a ghost. Someone smart, calculating, and methodical. The fear was no longer just emotional. It was physical. You could feel it in the air. Like the sniper was always watching, always waiting. 23 days passed. 10 people killed, 3 others wounded. There seemed to be no end in sight. The shooter had become the most feared man in America, and no one had a name, a face, or even a vehicle to connect to him. It was a living nightmare for an entire region, one where anyone at any moment could be the next victim. And yet, the worst part was still to come. The day authorities would learn who the killer really was, and how close he had been the entire time. After 3 weeks weeks of chaos, fear, and unanswered questions, the Beltway Sniper Attacks had paralyzed the region. But the most disturbing part was still hidden in plain sight. Investigators were chasing shadows, drowning in tips, and chasing vehicles that didn't lead anywhere. The sniper had been methodical, disciplined, and eerily silent, until he made a mistake. That mistake didn't just crack the case wide open, it revealed one of the most chilling criminal duos in modern American history. Authorities began noticing patterns in the shell casings and bullet fragments, but it wasn't until forensic teams connected earlier shootings from different states that they realized this killing spree had actually started months before the Washington D.C. attacks. The snipers weren't just local. They were moving across state lines, practicing, perfecting, and testing law enforcement response. The killers were traveling, and they were watching. Then came the breakthrough. Investigators received a tip about a suspicious blue 1990 Chevrolet Caprice seen near multiple crime scenes. The tip connected the car to a man named John Allen Muhammad, a Gulf War veteran with a troubling past and extremist views. His name had appeared before in earlier reports but was buried under thousands of leads. Now, it was front and center. More importantly, he wasn't alone. With him was Lee Boyd Malvo, a 17-year-old drifter from Jamaica. He wasn't just a passenger, he was the one pulling the trigger. John Muhammad had manipulated Malvo like a puppet master. He filled the boy's mind with hatred, anti-American ideology, and the belief that they were soldiers in a self-declared war. But it wasn't just ideological, it was disturbingly calculated. They had modified the Caprice into a mobile sniper's nest. A hole was cut near the trunk's keyhole, allowing Malvo to fire the rifle from inside while Muhammad drove or scouted the area. It was genius in its simplicity and horrifying in its purpose. No one saw them because no one thought to look inside a parked car for a killer hiding in the shadows. On October 24, 2002, after weeks of terror, authorities finally caught them sleeping inside that same car at a rest stop off I-70 near Frederick, Maryland. No shots were fired. No resistance. The monsters that had held a nation hostage were captured without a sound. Inside the car, investigators found the rifle, the scope, the bipod, and a wealth of evidence connecting them to the killings. It was over. But the damage had already been done. The public was stunned. John Muhammad didn't look like a monster. He was a decorated soldier, a father. Lee Malvo was a teenager, skinny, quiet, barely out of boyhood. But the evil they unleashed together defied all logic. During interrogation, Malvo confessed in disturbing detail. He remembered every shot, every victim, every calculated move. But the most chilling part? This wasn't just about terror. There was a longer game. Their original plan was even more horrifying than anyone imagined. According to Malvo's confession, Muhammad planned to kill 6 people a day for 30 days. Then he wanted to use the chaos as a cover to demand ransom from the government. With that money, they intended to open a sniper training camp for children. Yes, children who would carry out future attacks across the country. It was an elaborate, apocalyptic vision of control and destruction, and they came far too close to succeeding. In court, John Allen Muhammad was found guilty and sentenced to death. He was executed in 2009 by lethal injection. Lee Boyd Malvo, due to his age at the time of the crimes, was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole, though his sentence remains controversial and the subject of legal review due to changing juvenile justice laws. The Beltway Sniper case changed law enforcement forever. It exposed dangerous gaps in communication between jurisdictions, highlighted the need for better profiling of domestic terrorism, and taught investigators to never overlook the unconventional. But above all, it left behind a trail of grief, trauma, and unanswered questions for the victims' families. Ordinary people who lost loved ones in parking lots, on sidewalks, and outside schools, for no reason other than being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Today, when we talk about the Beltway Sniper, we don't just remember the crimes. We remember how fear turned cities into ghost towns, how people pumped gas while crouching, how schools locked their gates, We remember how two faces, one old enough to know better and one too young to understand, managed to paralyze a nation with a rifle and a car. If this story moved you, made you look over your shoulder, or opened your eyes to the horrors lurking beneath the surface, then please take a moment to support this channel. Like the video, share it with others who follow true crime, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories that chill the spine and shake the soul. Your support helps us uncover more hidden truths, more chilling crimes, and more stories that deserve to be told. Thank you for watching, and stay alert. The real world is often darker than fiction.